Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time with me today. So my name is Sam Kelly if you do not already know me, and I am a respiratory therapist turned PA student. So I posted on my Instagram account asking you guys what you wanted to see from me, and I thought a interactive video would be really fun for my first video. That way you guys get to ask the questions about me that you want to know, and I can share stuff with you, and that way we can get to know each other a little bit better. So we're going to be doing a Q&A today. A lot of the questions that you guys submitted have to do with me being a respiratory therapist and me being a PA student. So I did split them up into two separate categories. So first we'll do the respiratory therapy related questions, and then we'll go into the PA related questions. Let's get into the video. If you guys see me looking down, it's just because I'm reading the questions that you guys asked me off this. Okay, so the first question someone asked was, what is your undergraduate degree in? My official undergraduate degree that's like on my diploma is a Bachelor's of Science in Respiratory Care. So I was in the respiratory care program at my university. What that major is just training you how to be a respiratory therapist. So after I completed that degree, I was able to sit for 2 board exams, which allowed me to be a licensed respiratory therapist. So my official title, right here, is a RRT, so it's registered respiratory therapist. Okay, so the next question is, did you go look for colleges with respiratory therapy, or did you find out about it at school? And the person went on to kind of say in another question box that they didn't know it was a bachelor's degree. They actually have never heard of the profession before, and girl, same. I did not know what a respiratory therapist was before I went to college. I didn't know that there was a degree for it, whether it was associate's, bachelor's, whatever it might be. So I had a teammate on the dance team I was at college, and she was in the respiratory care program, and I kind of picked her brain about it. I was interested in healthcare, wasn't really a fit for like nursing, and I didn't want to be a doctor, so respiratory therapy sounded super interesting. After I picked her brain about it, I applied into that program when I was already in undergrad, and I got in. What areas do you work in as an RT? So I mainly work in the medical section of my hospital. My hospital and my department splits up into teams. So I'm on the medical team. So I mainly work in the medical ICU and medical step-down units and medical floors. The medical ICU has our non-surgical patients, I guess you could say. So they have other medical issues like our COPDers that are now intubated, or people that are pneumonia now intubated. In the medical ICU, I do take care of a lot of intubated patients. ICU, that's just like the sickest patient population, so they do tend to be intubated when they need our care, or they're just on really high FiO2s or non-invasive ventilation. On our medical step-down unit, we have our ventilators that maybe didn't wean in the ICU, so now they're trached and weaning on our medical step-down unit. I take care of chronic trachs and ventilators there, as well as people that just aren't sick enough to be in the ICU but need a closer eye than the floors. On the floors, we have a lot of our low flow oxygen therapy, nebulizers, and things like that. I also have worked in other areas of the hospital because we have to be trained on all teams and be able to be pulled at any place at any time, just because that's how staffing is sometimes. So even though I mainly work in those medical areas, I also was trained and do get pulled sometimes to the emergency department, the surgical ICU, neuro ICU, CV ICU, kind of work everywhere. Just I'm mainly on the medical side of the hospital, which I love. How did your first long shift go? Someone asking with back and knee pain, wanting to be a respiratory therapist. I work 12-hour shifts. It's not like that everywhere, but mostly you work 12-hour shifts when you're in the hospital, and 12 hours is long. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I really do prefer working 3 12-hour shifts a week than 5 8-hour shifts a week. Just my preference. But 12 hours can feel long, but it also can go by really quick if you're really busy and have a lot to do. So I definitely like the 12 hours. Some people don't, but it didn't really bother me. But as for like back and knee pain, I didn't really have any pain before that, but it is a lot of standing, walking around, charting at computers standing. You could also sit. You sit in between your rounds if you do have a break. Sometimes you don't, so you are standing the whole time. So I just really recommend getting a great pair of sneakers or shoes that are good for knee and back support. So for me, I just got a really good pair of sneakers. I liked Asics and Brooks and New Balances. Nikes didn't really have great support for me, so I do recommend those other brands, and that really helped with knee and like back soreness for me, but I don't have any chronic pain. Just know, as a respiratory therapist, you do need to be able to move patients, whether it's putting on a therapy vest or helping the nurses do turns. And also, we are pushing pretty heavy equipment at times, like the ventilators and BiPAPs, so you do need to keep that in mind and make sure you're able to complete those tasks as a respiratory therapist. It is part of the job description, but as for dealing with it, it is definitely possible. You just have to be smart, wearing good shoes, good posture, all that. Any advice for pre-RT students? Respiratory therapy school, it's a lot of information in a short amount of time, kind of like PA school, but like a mini version. I found that it was a lot of information, but I was able to retain it because it was something I was interested in. Making sure that you're not memorizing the material, but you are actually understanding it, and that's going to help you grasp the material so much better. Find a good study buddy, someone that you could talk through concepts with. That way you also can relate to them when you're going through tough times. There was a lot of exams, at least at my school. It was all worth it, and I learned so much. And as for clinical portion of respiratory school, just treat every clinical site like a job interview. Always ask questions, be willing to learn, and just engage with your preceptor. And just know that you're going to be a respiratory therapist with a great career after this, and you're going to get a job and everything's going to be great. So just stay positive and think about the end goal. So I think this person was trying to say most difficult thing that I learned in RT school. I would have to say it was ventilators. The concepts and stuff I was able to understand through like the textbook and pen and paper and through learning it. But ventilators, it's not the same. I understood like what each button was and what the eye time means and what you do when you adjust a rate, things like that. So I understood the ventilator aspect, but it was more so managing the patients on the ventilator. You can't teach that in a textbook. You can't teach that in school. That was something that I really had to learn on the job, which I feel like a lot of respiratory therapists totally agree with that. You really can't learn that until you have a patient in front of you on a ventilator and you need to make a change. What made you decide to go RT to PA? So I actually learned about the PA profession while I was in respiratory school. I definitely was interested after doing research and kind of looked at the requirements. I just knew that I needed patient care experience, so I figured I'd just keep going with the respiratory route and become a respiratory therapist. That way I could gain patient care experience as a respiratory therapist after school. Kind of put it on the back burner because I was in respiratory school, just needed to finish. Once I graduated and was working as a respiratory therapist, I told myself I'd work as an RT for 1 full year and then decide from there. I wasn't sure if respiratory was going to be my end-all be-all. It might have been because it is for a lot of people. But after that year, I worked so closely with a lot of PAs. I really saw the profession up close, and I was so impressed with the PAs, how much they knew, how smart they were, how much they were allowed to do, and it just got me more intrigued into the profession. So I did decide to then start taking classes at that point. That way I could apply to PA school. Overall, I just chose to go back to school and become a physician assistant because I wanted more responsibility over my patients. We have a lot of responsibility over our patients as a respiratory therapist, but it's only one aspect. I wanted the ability to diagnose, treat, prescribe, and I just wanted to do more and know more. How much do you feel being an RT prepared you for getting into PA school? I think it prepared me a lot. So I think it is just great patient care experience because it's super hands-on. So anyone who's thinking about it, it is going to be a very unique way to stand out when applying to PA school. It's not the classic CNA or scribe or MA, which are not bad, but this is just more unique and it's a lot more hands-on than a lot of professions. So I do think it helped me in that regard in standing out and getting accepted by my PCE, but overall, it's really going to prepare me clinically, I think. I'm so comfortable with patients. I take care of patients by myself all the time, used to treatment plans, used to collaborating with the physicians, PAs, nurses in the medical ICU currently. I think from that regard, I'm gonna feel very prepared and comfortable, but it is only one system. It's just the respiratory system I learned about, which is a big one, but I need to learn about all the other systems too, and there's still so much for me to learn. I only know a small fraction in the knowledge regard. So I do think being a respiratory therapist prepared me, but only so much. Okay, now moving on to the PA related questions. Why PA over nursing, MD, DO programs? I didn't go into nursing versus respiratory therapy originally, just because nursing just never really interested me. Yes, I'm interested in healthcare, but just the field itself and kind of the nursing model wasn't something I was interested in. So in that regard, now that I'm a respiratory therapist, it really doesn't make sense for me to go back to nursing school to get a BSN and then become an NP. That route just doesn't make sense for me anymore. And then talking about MD-DO, I just didn't find the 4 years of medical school that appealing, to be honest. Not only is it 4 years of medical school, then it's like another couple years of residency. It just felt like never ending. Yes, the aspects of medicine totally appealed to me, but it just wasn't a commitment I was willing to give up. Also, doctors do have a lot of responsibility that I just wasn't interested in. Then when I found the PA profession, I just felt it was such a happy medium. I would get to be able to treat, diagnose, prescribe, and do a lot of procedures, assistant surgery if I wanted to, things like that. All the fun stuff that I wanted to do to be a doctor was there, but not the extra stuff that comes with being a doctor. Also, you're working collaboratively. You're not the end-all be-all decision maker, which I don't mind personally. So it kind of just fit. And 2 years of schooling, you could do anything for 2 years. So I am super excited about my decision for PA. That's just a little gist of it. I can do a longer video if you guys want about completely why I wanted to be a PA. How many PA programs did I apply to, and were they in-state or out-of-state? So my first cycle, I applied to 4 schools, and they were all in-state local schools. I got rejected from all 4 schools that first cycle, so I had to apply again. So this past year, I ended up applying to 17 schools. Okay, it's a lot. The most people say is usually to apply to 12, and your chances don't really go up the more you apply. I was just applying to every school I qualified for within a 4-hour radius of where I currently lived. I was widening my chances. I just wanted to make sure I got accepted because I did not want to apply a 3rd cycle. Luckily, my current job lets me be financially stable, so I could afford to apply to that many schools. But yeah, I applied to 17 schools. They were all in like the surrounding area, like I said, a 4-hour radius. So that was schools in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. Lots of states. I'm in the Northeast area, so all the states are really small. So a 4-hour radius took up like all those states. What types of people have I shadowed for the job shadowing requirement? Most schools require you to shadow a PA specifically. You can definitely shadow other providers if you want to be more educated on other fields if you're not sure if PA is for you. So I've seen people list things like MD, shadowing physical therapist, but me specifically, I just shadowed physician assistants. So I shadowed 3 different physician assistants. One was a cardiovascular surgery PA. One was a plastic surgery PA that was actually previously my dermatology PA. And then the last person I shadowed was a critical care physician assistant who actually was previously a respiratory therapist before he went back to PA school. So that was really interesting opportunity. Did you apply to any schools that needed the GRE, and then how did I prepare for that? Yes, I did apply to schools that needed the GRE. I would say about like 50 to 60% required the GRE. I applied to schools that only required the GRE with no minimum or recommended the 300 minimum because I did not have a 300. I spent about 2 months studying for the GRE. I'll pop them up here, but I used the ETS books. They're like purple books. You get them off Amazon. I believe it was like $40. I just reviewed those books on like the types of questions that are on the GRE. I just did a lot of practice tests. So that book has a lot of practice tests. Once you sign up for the GRE, I believe you get 2 practice tests on the ETS website. And then I also use the Magoosh app, which for vocab, which is free. Anything you wish you would have done differently before or during the application process? So I'm gonna say no. I think everything happens for a reason, and I did everything the way I did it, and that resulted in my acceptance today. So applying that first cycle, I definitely wasn't 100% ready, but I thought, hey, if I'm financially stable where I can apply, just apply to 4 schools, get used to the application process, and maybe I'll get accepted, which would be awesome, but that's not the case. So it was a learning experience that first cycle. And then the second cycle, yeah, I applied to a lot of schools. I wish I didn't spend all that money, but at the same time, it gave me a lot of interview experience because I got more interviews than I would have originally if I only applied to local schools. So I think that interview experience definitely gave me the opportunity to do well on the interviews I had later, which ended up being the school I got accepted to. So I really don't regret anything. I think everything happens for a reason. You do things for a reason to end up where you are today. So I'm happy. Do you have any specialties that you are interested in? Yes and no. I'm definitely going into school with an open mind, which I think everyone should, because I hear all the time that certain specialties interested people that they never originally thought about. I guess fields that I'm interested in, or just I find interest in now, would be something pulmonary related, just because I have that background as a respiratory therapist. I think ortho is really cool, dermatology is awesome, and I also have been currently thinking about family medicine, which my school has an emphasis on family medicine, so I'm really excited about that. But like I said, keeping an open mind, letting whatever inspires me during school take me to the field I'm supposed to be in. Does didactic year scare you? A little. I would be lying if I said it didn't. There is definitely a little bit of an intimidation factor when it comes to didactic year, just because everyone talks about how much content it is, like drinking water from a fire hydrant. You'll hear that expression a million times, but everyone says it's so true. So I'm definitely a little nervous about the amount of content and just how busy I'll be and things like that. But at the end of the day, I'm so excited. I've been so ready for this. I've been prepping for the last 2+ years. So I'm ready. I'm ready to take it on. A little scared, but more excited for sure. So this one, I'll pop up both the questions because they kind of go together, and I'll answer them both together. How many prereqs do you recommend taking a semester while working full-time? And how did you manage taking the prereqs while working full-time? I had to take 5 prerequisite courses to be able to apply to more schools that second cycle, and I actually took them all one at a time, and I did them online, and I did accelerated courses, so they were about 5 to 8 weeks depending on the credit amount, and I only took one at a time because the end goal is always to be getting an A. My GPA wasn't amazing, it wasn't terrible, but the goal is just to always raise your GPA. So I decided on taking one course at a time, that way I could focus all my energy on it, and it's because I was spending a lot of energy elsewhere, whether it was at work, outside of work, my personal life. So I really just didn't want to overload myself to the point where I couldn't get an A in a course. And really, it's just up to the individual person. If you think you can handle more, go for it. But really, it's about getting that A and how much personal time you want to sacrifice to do well in these courses. So it is up to you. Then to answer the second question, how did I manage taking the courses while working full-time? I really just utilized my days off. Luckily, my profession, we work 3 12-hour shifts. I work nights, so I couldn't really do in-person classes. That's why I chose to do the online classes. But I had a few days off a week, so I was able to spend those days doing my classwork. And really, it's just about setting aside that free time you have to get that coursework done. Did I get discouraged when applying? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. I think everyone at one point or another probably gets discouraged. I think it's really hard to not compare yourself to others, whether it's on the forums when people are posting their stats, or that they got an interview and they submitted their application after you. I also felt really discouraged when I got rejected after interviews or even before interviews. It's so easy to get discouraged during this process, but really it's about recovering and remembering your worth and why you are here and why you deserve to be here in this position and become a great future PA. So yes, I got discouraged, but it's all about picking yourself back up. And I know that can be hard to do, but we gotta do it. We gotta hype each other up. You need to put down the phone, stop looking at the stats sometimes, and just really work on your mental health. And like I said, remain positive throughout this experience. This person asked about preparing for PA school. Did I use PA school prep? Yes, I'm actually affiliated with PA school prep. You can use the code PATH2PA for 35% off the course. I've used it and I highly recommend it. It was such a great refresher course. It's self-paced anatomy and physiology review. So as someone who has been working as a respiratory therapist for literally 3 years before PA school, you would not believe the amount of anatomy and physiology I forgot. Of course, I'm going to be relearning it in school, but I'm just the type of person that can't sit still sometimes. I just wanted a mini refresher. That way, when I get to PA school, I don't feel so behind. I do recommend using that. You don't have to, but if you would like to and want to check it out, the link is in the description below, and make sure you use PATH2PA for some money off. So besides that, I also use the Netter's Anatomy coloring book. I got it off Amazon for like 14 bucks, and then I got a set of colored pencils for Christmas from my mom. So that was like one of my Christmas gifts. So that's just been kind of a passive way for me to be like reviewing anatomy and physiology. And then I actually have been doing a little med term studying, but that's just because my school that I'm going to requires it. The second week of school, we have a medical terminology exam. So they did give us the name of a book to start reviewing. That way we're prepared when we take our medical terminology exam. And honestly, I took a medical terminology course in undergrad and I forgot a lot. And I work in the hospital and a lot of these terms do come back to me, but damn, I gotta get ready. But preparing before PA school is all up to you. A lot of people say relax, which I have been, or I will be once I stop working. Like I said, it's up to you, the type of person you are. You don't need to prepare before PA school. It's up to you as an individual. All right, and the last question, what did I look for while apartment hunting? So for those of you that follow me on Instagram know I just moved into my new apartment, and this is the apartment I'll be staying in for the duration of PA school. Let me know if you guys want me to do an apartment tour maybe. But to answer what this person asked, what I was looking for in the apartment I would be staying in while I'm in PA school is definitely a place that I would be comfortable in. Yes, you have to worry about loans. That's how I'm paying for everything while I'm in school, but you also don't want to be uncomfortable. I definitely could have been spending a little bit less money on my living situation, but in the long run, I don't think it would have been worth it. I think it's super important to be comfortable while you're in school. And what I mean by that is I had an old apartment that I lived in before this, and the appliances were always breaking down. And yes, we were saving a few bucks, but it just wasn't worth it to have maintenance guys coming in and out of the house fixing things. I didn't want that hassle. So my boyfriend and I decided to move into an apartment that was around the same price range, but just minus a bedroom. So we only have a 1 bedroom. And basically what I was looking for in that was also a place I could fit my desk, which is super important, especially now that there's a part of PA school that's online. I really needed an area that I could be working during the daytime when I had to do lectures online. So that's really important, to find a space that fits a desk, because whether school will be online or not online in the future, you're still gonna need to be studying at home. Another important factor was obviously location. So I will be about a 30 to 35 minute drive from campus. I could have definitely moved closer to school, but I had to consider my partner who I live with, and his work is about 20 minutes from where we're currently living, and then I'm about, like I said, 30 to 35. So it was a good middle point for both of us. We love this area, so that was really important too, liking the area that we live in. I didn't want to just have school home 2-minute drive, that's it. I wanted to be able to come home, decompress. A 30-minute drive is not something I typically worry about, and if driving bothers you, you might want to definitely live closer to school. And I have a dog, so it was really important that there was kind of a space for her. So we're really close to some local trails, and it has a little dog park for her. So it was important that she was also comfortable in our apartment, because let's face it, our dogs are our kids. But like I said, you want to consider price, comfortability, location, and then space. Do you have enough space to study? So I think that was kind of it when it came to apartment hunting and what I cared for. And that is it for this video. I hope you liked my Q&A with a RT turned PA student. I hope you guys learned something today and I was able to answer your questions. It was so much fun doing something that was interactive with you guys. Thank you so much for sending me questions to answer. I'm sorry that I did not get to all of them because there was a lot. Some of the questions were so good that I decided to make full videos on them. So look out for those in the future. Stay tuned for another video soon. Until next time, bye.